Hello, Namaskar. This is Firstpost and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India had a phone call with US President Donald Trump. He described it as warm and engaging. We'll tell you what they discussed and what does it mean for the trade talks between the two countries. Meanwhile, Washington is rolling out the Trump Gold Card. It's $1 million pass to enter America unless you're white-skinned and pro-Trump in your politics, because they will also check your social media profile before letting you in. Also in focus, a tense build-up in the Pacific. US bombers fly with Japan as they face off against jets from China and Russia. In Pakistan, they've got a new F-16 deal. We'll tell you about Trump's latest gift to Rawalpindi, plus the new space race. Why does big tech want to build data centers in space? Is there a $400 billion AI bubble? Insiders warn that chips are getting old too quickly. Is the Nobel Peace Prize a global honor or a political tool? What are NATO troops doing in Santa's hometown? Why has the US seized an oil tanker off Venezuela? How Diwali and Italian cooking join UNESCO's cultural heritage list, and what it means for global identity. Also, is mental illness being overdiagnosed? Doctors have sounded the alarm. We'll tell you all about it. The headlines first. Bangladesh will hold its general election on the 12th of February. This will be the country's first one since a student-led uprising toppled Sheikh Hasina's government last year. Hasina's Awami League party has been banned from the polls. Khalida Zia's Bangladesh Nationalist Party is widely tipped to win this election. Myanmar's junta launches an airstrike on a hospital, killing more than 30 people. A military aircraft dropped bombs on the hospital. The attack took place in the Rakhine state bordering Bangladesh. The western state is controlled by rebels. They have been fighting the junta since it came to power in a coup in 2021. Pakistan's former spy chief Faiz Hamid sentenced to 14 years in prison. A military court convicted him of violating state secrets and engaging in political activities. Hamid served during the tenure of Imran Khan. He was a staunch supporter of the jailed former prime minister. Bulgaria's government resigns after anti-corruption protests. They were in office for less than a year. The demonstrations were sparked by a 2026 draft budget. Last week, the government was forced to withdraw it, but the move failed to end the mass protests. Bulgaria is the poorest country in the European Union. And South Sudan says it has reached an agreement with Sudan's warring parties over a key oil field near their border. Just days ago, Sudan's paramilitary forces had seized it. Now South Sudan will guard the oil field. The Sudanese army and the paramilitary RSF have been at war since April 2023. It came out of the blue. Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke to US President Donald Trump. The phone call happened just a short while ago. It was not announced in advance, but the timing could not have been better. And Prime Minister Modi was the first to reveal it. He posted on X, and this is what he wrote, I'm quoting, "Had a very warm and engaging conversation with President Trump. We reviewed the progress in our bilateral relations and discussed regional and international developments. India and the US will continue to work together for global peace, stability, and prosperity." So the two leaders have spoken directly. Is the trade deal done? It doesn't look like it. Prime Minister Modi's post did not say much. It was generic. Both leaders reviewed the relationship and discussed ways to strengthen it. They talked about trade, critical technologies, energy, defense, and security ties. We don't have the specifics and we won't speculate. Reports say both sides expressed satisfaction and agreed to keep the momentum going, especially on trade. And this is critical because for months, India and the US have been locked in trade talks. There has been considerable back and forth. Deadlines have come and gone, and we still don't have a deal. Trump slapped 50% tariffs on Indian imports. Those are very much in place, those tariffs. Top US trade officials are in India right now. They're talking to their Indian counterparts to hammer out a deal. India's Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal spoke about this today. He shared an update. He said the US delegation is not here for a formal negotiating round. They're not here for a formal negotiating round. He said both sides are just using this opportunity to, quote unquote, understand each other better and exchange ideas. Goel did have a message for them, though. He said if the US believes it has a good deal on the table, then they should just sign on the dotted line. And why did he say it? This was in response to an earlier statement that came from Washington, a statement from a top trade official in the Trump administration. We're talking about the US Trade Representative Jamieson Greer. He was briefing the US Congress about India. The trade negotiations came up and Greer gave a positive response. He said, and I quote, "India's proposals were among the best we've ever received as a country."
I have a team over there right now as we speak in New Delhi working on this. There's resistance in India to certain row crops and other meats and products. They're, like you said, they're very difficult nut to crack. I agree with that 100%. But they've been quite forward-leaning. The type of offers they've been talking to us about have been the best we've ever received as a country.
That's a strong endorsement. Basically, the American side has hinted at progress, especially in sensitive areas like agriculture. And today, Prime Minister Modi and President Trump have spoken. It is not clear how close they are to a deal, but it shows that they're engaging actively. So, long story short, no breakthrough yet, but it's still work in progress. We'll keep tracking the story for you.
Tremendous amount of money for the future. This is going into the future.
They said Donald Trump would run America like a business, efficient, methodical, and profit-driven. Well, they were right, but not in ways they expected. President Trump has turned the US into a subscription service, like a Netflix or a Spotify. And the fee? A cool $1 million per person. Let me explain. Yesterday, Trump unveiled a new visa program. Forget complicated names like H-1B or L-1 or B-2. This one is called the Trump Gold Card. The Trump Gold Card. And here's what it looks like. The card has a picture of Donald Trump, a picture of the Statue of Liberty, and a picture of America's national bird, the bald eagle. It's obviously gold in color. It also features the signature of Donald Trump. Frankly, this does not look like a US visa. It looks like a club membership card at Mar-a-Lago. On second thoughts, I guess it's perfect. Trump touted this card as a big victory for immigration. He says it will retain foreign talent in the US, including from India and China.
The gift of getting somebody great coming into our country, because we think these will be some tremendous people that wouldn't be allowed to stay. They graduate from college, they have to go back to India, they have to go back to China, they have to go back to France, they have to go back to wherever they came from. Very hard to stay. It's a shame. It's ridiculous things. We're taking care of that. The companies are going to be very happy. And the other thing is it'll take in, we think, probably billions of dollars that will go to the Treasury of the United States, that will go to an account where we can do things positive for the country. So it'll be a great thing. We'll take in, I think, billions of dollars.
So what is this golden card? Simply put, it's a permanent work visa. Trump has not created a new visa class. He has simply created a new pathway. If you get a gold card, you are actually getting an EB-1 or EB-2 visa. Both are special work visas. They're reserved for highly skilled people. But in this case, you can buy them. You must pay $15,000 as application fee, and after that, US officials will vet you. And then you must pay $1 million. Only then will you get a Trump Gold Card. And this one is for individuals. Companies can also sponsor gold cards for their workers, but that will cost $2 million. In addition, a platinum card is also coming out. That will cost you $5 million. And what's the difference? Well, a gold card holder will still have to pay taxes, but a platinum card holder, you can stay for 270 days without paying taxes. And this is not some radical new idea. Countries like the UAE already have golden visas. Say you buy some property in the UAE, or you invest in a fund, or you're a highly skilled worker, then the UAE will grant you a long-term golden visa. But there's a difference. In America, the eligibility is confusing. Look at what the website says. A $1 million gift upon completion of the individual's vetting is evidence that the individual will substantially benefit the United States. Now, what does a gift mean? Nobody knows at this point. But this gold card reveals Trump's preference. Donald Trump wants affluent migrants only. People who would pay $1 million for a visa. That's around 9 crore Indian rupees, $1 million, 9 crore Indian rupees. It will be interesting to see who applies. For example, can Russian oligarchs get a gold card? Or African arms dealers, can they get one? That's the question to watch out for. But equally interesting is who Trump is keeping out. Now, he is planning a new visa requirement for 42 countries. These are countries that have visa-free access to the US. If you're a citizen of one of these 42 countries, you don't need a visa to visit the US. You only need a travel authorization, which means you give them some basic information. Your request is electronically screened and approved. No interviews, no endless waiting. This applies to 42 countries, but Trump is adding a new hurdle for them. He wants travelers to submit 5 years of social media history. The White House has not said why, but the reason appears clear. To screen the applicants for their political views. Are they Trump critics or fans or indifferent? And we've already seen this play out. In October, the US cancelled visas of at least 6 people. Do you know the reason? Because they criticized Trump supporter Charlie Kirk, so their visa was cancelled. Even a Nobel-winning writer had his visa revoked. He compared Donald Trump to Ugandan dictator Idi Amin, and on cue his visa was revoked. Now, if you add all of this up, a clear picture emerges, a picture of who Trump wants in the United States. They must be rich and they must like his policies. If they are not rich, they must fit Trump's profile. For example, white South Africans are welcomed in the US, but Afghans or Somalis are not welcome. So obviously, there is a race angle too. Now imagine if some other countries pull this off. They screen your social media for your visa application, they revoke your visa because you criticize the ruling ideology, and they filter refugees based on skin color. What do you think would happen? Global outrage, a dozen statements from the European Union, some condemnation from the United Nations chief, and of course a relentless campaign by human rights groups. That is what would happen. But in this case, it's just Trump being Trump. Morals aside, this reveals a new driver of US policy. It is not strategy, it is not politics, it is culture wars. That's why Trump thinks that Europe is decaying. That's why he's attacking South Africa. It's about imposing his domestic political goals on the world. It's a dangerous and slippery slope. The crisis in East Asia is spiraling. Military tensions between Japan and China are escalating by the minute. And now American warplanes have entered the picture. These are the B-52 strategic bombers. These warplanes are capable of firing nuclear weapons, and the US has sent 2 of them. Today, these warplanes flew with Japanese jets. There were 2 American B-52 bombers. They were escorted by 3 Japanese F-35s. And 3 F-15 fighter jets. All these planes flew together in tight formation over waters between Japan and South Korea. And what was the goal of this operation? Usually, these exercises are meant to test interoperability and readiness. Pilots practice real-time coordination, tactics, and communication, basically everything they will need in a real crisis. But this was not a routine drill, because look at the location and the timing. This operation happened in the same region where Russia and China flew fighter jets, and it happened barely 24 hours after Russia and China did it. So today's operation is a response from Japan. And they were backed by the United States. Together, they sent a message to Beijing and Moscow. Do not challenge the status quo. Refrain from further military escalation. That was the message. Japan said today's response was a show of readiness. But let's be honest, it was more about deterrence. And China has responded. They have criticized Japan. They've said that Tokyo should, quote unquote, stop making a fuss.
China's Ministry of National Defense has released related information on the China-Russia joint patrol, and we made response yesterday. Let me stress once again that this China-Russia joint strategic air patrol is an operation carried out under the annual cooperation plan and demonstrates the two sides' determination and capability in jointly responding to regional security challenges and safeguarding regional peace and stability. There is no need for Japan to make a fuss or feel targeted.
China is making this sound like a trivial matter, but Japan feels differently. They believe that China's aggressive actions are a national security threat. So they've sought help from the US military. Tokyo is building support. It is calling up allies. It has dialed leaders across global capitals. Japan's defense minister is reaching out to allies. So far, he's spoken to the leadership of Italy and he has briefed NATO. He's told them about the radar lock incident. This is what happened over the weekend. It was the most serious face-off in years between Japan and China. You see, when a fighter jet locks radar on another plane, it signals one thing. An attack could be just seconds away. So the target is forced to react. The other plane, they must either dodge the radar lock or they must prepare to fire back. And this is why Tokyo called this incident dangerous. Japan said China had crossed a line. Chinese jets were a step away from firing a missile. But China insists that none of this happened. And after days of silence, the US has spoken. The US State Department finally issued a statement yesterday. It criticized China. It called the US-Japan alliance unwavering. Then the American warplanes joined the picture. The Americans sent these B-52 bombers. And now we have four powers, China and Russia on one side, Japan and the US on the other, flexing their military might in the same skies. It's a powder keg. One misstep and it could blow up into a full-fledged war. This is making Japanese businesses nervous. Reuters has released a survey. It reveals the mood of corporate Japan. What are their top concerns for 2026? That's the question they were asked. And the answer was not inflation or energy. The answer was China. 25% of Japanese firms said that China was their biggest worry, their number one risk. And the number two risk? US trade policies. 22% of businesses flagged that as a risk. And it's understandable. China and America are key trading partners for Japan. In fact, China is Japan's biggest trading partner. It supplies important components to Japanese industry like rare earths and electronics parts. So if relations hit a new low, they will hit supply chains in Japan. And China is already building pressure. China has issued travel warnings. It has forced airlines to cancel flights to Japan. It has blocked supplies of Japanese seafood. All these moves impact business confidence. A military escalation only makes it worse. And this should be a worry, not just for Japan, but for the region and the world. We cannot afford another flashpoint, let alone a war.
I would like to nominate for Nobel Peace Prize
Pakistan's Spotify Wrapped is out. Their top song is Thank You, Donald Trump. They nominated the US president for the Nobel. They struck crypto deals. They offered their rare earths, and now Trump is repaying them. If you're a Pakistani citizen, look away because this does not concern you. As always, this help is going to your military. The US has approved a new military package for Pakistan. It's worth around $686 million. And what's it for? To upgrade Pakistan's F-16 fleet. Now, the F-16 is the pride of Pakistan's military. They operate between 70 and 80 of these American jets. Back in the month of May, Pakistan deployed these F-16s against India. We'll come to the implications for New Delhi, but first let's look at this deal. $649 million for upgrading the planes, updated avionics, repairs, spare parts, advanced radars, also training. The remaining $37 million are for more advanced items, like the Link 16 system. Now, this system, the Link 16, allows pilots to communicate with ships and ground forces, and that too in real time. The US is also selling 6 bomb casings to Pakistan. These are casings for 500-pound bombs. They can be used as warheads for precision munitions. Put together, it's a comprehensive upgrade. It will extend the life of these F-16s to 2040. And the timing of this announcement is also important. It comes just months after Pakistan was routed by the Indian Air Force. That battle in May was an aerial clash. And Pakistan did deploy the F-16 jets against India during Operation Sindoor. But India-US ties are also in a difficult place, and that's why the timing is worth noting. President Trump has imposed 50% tariffs on Indian goods. He has also claimed credit for ending the India-Pakistan conflict. So things are very tense right now. Both sides are trying hard to strike a trade deal. Why would Washington pull off this move in the middle of all of this? Why would they arm Pakistan? Let me quote the US statement. This is what they've said. The upgrades will support the foreign policy and national security objectives of the United States by allowing Pakistan to retain interoperability with US and partner forces in ongoing counter-terrorism efforts and in preparation for future contingency operations. That is the official excuse. But in the current context, it is a provocation. Imagine if India sold fighter jet parts to Venezuela right now. How would the US perceive that? And Washington knows this. Let me quote from the statement again. The proposed sale of this equipment and support will not alter the basic military balance in the region. In other words, don't worry, India, this is not much of a big deal. I doubt New Delhi will see it that way. Yes, similar packages have been approved before, but this context is very different. We are seeing a major reset in US-Pakistan ties. Washington is investing heavily in some mining operations. This week, they sent $1.2 billion to Balochistan, and days later, they cleared an F-16 deal. Of course, Pakistan is capitalizing on this newfound clout. They're trying to reshape the region. Last week, Islamabad hosted a special conclave. The theme was Reimagining South Asia. Pakistan's foreign minister addressed the gathering, and guess what his big idea was? A regional grouping without India.
There could be groups with variable geometry on issues from economy to technology to connectivity. Our own national development needs and regional priorities cannot and should not be held hostage to anyone's rigidity, and you know where I am referring to.
Basically, SAARC minus India, that's what Pakistan is pitching. SAARC is the South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation. It's a bloc of 8 South Asian countries. For more than a decade, SAARC has been paralyzed, all thanks to Pakistan. So now Islamabad wants to create an alternative. We say good luck. Even their allies in Bangladesh are not upbeat. Dhaka's interim regime says it is possible to join such a bloc, but they said Nepal and Bhutan would not. Frankly, even Sri Lanka is a stretch. And the reason is quite simple. India is too big and too powerful to leave out. It is the geographic and economic core of South Asia. So as things stand, this bloc is unlikely to take off, but it does reveal Pakistan's thinking. They want to change the dynamics of South Asia. They can't do it alone, so they're dragging in foreign powers. Whether it's China or the US, Pakistan's goal is the same: contain India by any means. Let's talk about artificial intelligence. We know it's the future, the engine that's going to drive everything from economies to elections. But here's the twist. What if I told you that this future is not being built in Silicon Valley or inside those massive buzzing data centers on Earth? The real AI race is happening in outer space, orbiting above us at 28,000 kilometers per hour. Take any tech giant you know, Amazon, Google, OpenAI, they aren't just competing for users. They are racing to build something that humanity has never attempted before. Data centers in space. The question is why? Why in space? Also, is this the next great technological leap or just another billionaire fever dream? Tonight, we'll try to break it down. The entire thing started last year. It began with Elon Musk's SpaceX. SpaceX had a grand plan for the next Starlink satellites. They would carry AI hardware. Then came Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon. He has a space company called Blue Origin. They began to work on off-Earth compute modules, basically floating server racks. And then came Google. Google is hatching a plan to put AI data centers in space. The first trial equipment will be sent in 2027. But again, why on earth are we sending data centers to space? Because there's something that Silicon Valley does not want to admit. Artificial intelligence is eating our planet. Take a single modern data center. It uses enough electricity to power a small city. It burns through millions of liters of water a day. It heats local grids. It costs billions of dollars to build. And more importantly, it costs billions more to cool. And now AI companies want to scale this further. So by 2030, data centers may consume twice the electricity they use today. At some point, the math stops working. But again, why space? Why choose to put data centers in space? Because in space, you get a lot of things that you don't get on Earth. There's unlimited solar power. There are no cooling constraints. Heat radiates into the vacuum. You need no land or water. There are no zoning permissions or protests. So everything a data center struggles with, space solves elegantly. And it can be done. Last month, StarCloud launched a satellite with a single HP H100 GPU on board. A satellite with one H100 GPU on board. StarCloud is a company backed by NVIDIA. And if you don't understand chips, let me make it simpler. Putting an H100 in space is like strapping a Ferrari engine inside a toaster and launching it. It should not work, except this one did. The satellite booted up. It loaded a version of Google's Gamma model. It also answered questions from space, and at one point, it even greeted the Earth with a message.
Greetings, Earthlings, or, as I prefer to think of you, a fascinating collection of blue and green. Let's see what wonders this view of your world holds. I'm Gemma, and I'm here to observe, analyze, and perhaps occasionally offer a slightly unsettlingly insightful commentary. Let's begin.
It was cute, funny, eerie, and historic because this was proof of concept. Once StarCloud proved it was possible, the Titans moved fast. Google announced Project Suncatcher, a constellation of solar-powered satellites. SpaceX wants upgraded Starlink satellites that can run AI inference. Jeff Bezos believes future data centers logically belong in space. OpenAI's Sam Altman has explored buying a stake in a rocket company. They're all moving in, but it's not going to be a cakewalk. You see, space is trying to kill everything you send there. You're dealing with brutal radiation, extreme temperature swings, micrometeorites, zero maintenance, and regulatory chaos. So even with falling launch prices, this is a logistical nightmare. And yet companies want to try it because AI is about to overwhelm the Earth. And space solves the bottleneck, or so they hope. Which means that this bizarre future may not even be a choice. It may be inevitable. And this is Space Race 2.0, not for the moon, not for Mars, but for artificial intelligence. And whoever builds the first real data center in orbit won't just win the tech race, they may just win the century. Meanwhile, concerns over an AI bubble are growing. Another tech giant is showing signs of strain. We are talking about Oracle. Its stock just took a beating. This week, Oracle released its quarterly earnings report and it has missed expectations. The stock has plunged by over 10% and it has put the old question back in focus. Is the AI hype starting to unravel? As we speak, companies are pouring billions into AI. At the same time, a new red flag is emerging. The chips, the semiconductors that power this revolution are becoming outdated at breakneck speed. Major tech players have spent some $400 billion on chips. Data centers run on chips, but at this rate, they won't last for even 2 years. And if your core technology ages faster than your investment cycle, the AI boom may be headed for a very hard landing.
The AI boom just hit another speed bump, and this time, it's Oracle. The company's shares dropped over 10%. Oracle reported its quarterly results, and their earnings have missed expectations. Oracle made a little over $16 billion in revenue. Analysts expected a bigger number. Even though Oracle's AI division grew by 68% and revenue jumped 14% overall, investors weren't convinced. Because this isn't just about numbers. It's about fear. Fear of an AI bubble. Oracle has positioned itself as an AI infrastructure giant. They supply cloud power to companies like OpenAI. They even signed a $300 billion deal with them. That deal made headlines. It briefly made Larry Ellison the world's richest man. But the stock? It's down 40% since September. The worry now? Overexposure. Too much reliance on AI hype. Too little clarity on profits. Even Oracle's chairman sounds cautious. There are going to be a lot of changes in AI, Ellison said. That's code for, this is moving too fast, and we don't know where it's going. Here's the big picture. The tech industry has spent $400 billion on AI chips and data centers. That's a massive bet. But here's the issue. These chips are aging fast. Before the AI wave, servers and chips lasted 6 years. Now, 2 to 3 years at best. New chips arrive almost every year. NVIDIA's next model is going to be 7.5 times faster than the last one. That means older chips become obsolete quickly. Some just burn out, quite literally. They run so hot, they break down. So companies are spending billions on hardware that might not last, and the problem gets worse. Because these chips are often used as loan collateral, if their value crashes, so does the balance sheet. And it's not just Oracle. Smaller firms like CoreWeave are deep in debt too. Everyone's racing to build faster, bigger, and smarter tools. Analysts are ringing alarm bells. Some say this is a classic bubble, built on hype and shaky numbers. Michael Burry, the man who predicted the 2008 crash, has raised concerns too. He's not alone. Economists warn that if chip life cycles shrink and depreciation timelines tighten, tech profits will fall hard. Right now, companies are betting that AI costs will stay low. But if they're wrong, the correction could be brutal. And not just for tech, for the entire economy riding the AI wave. Oracle's drop isn't just a bad earnings day, it's a reality check. AI is moving fast. Too fast, maybe. And the money flooding in, $400 billion and counting, is starting to look risky. This boom may still have legs, but the cracks are showing. And if the AI dream goes bust, the fall won't be small. It'll be seismic.
Every award is subjective, whether it's an Oscar or a Booker or a school prize, some will inevitably disagree with the choice. But at what point does an award become ridiculous? This year's Nobel Peace Prize is a good candidate. Let me introduce the winner. Maria Corina Machado. She is a Venezuelan opposition leader. She was last seen in public in January this year. On Wednesday, her daughter received the prize in her absence. She received it on her behalf. But today, Machado made a surprise appearance in Oslo. Take a look at this. Machado opposes Venezuela's president, Nicolas Maduro. He has labeled her a terrorist. His government also warned her against traveling to Oslo. So how did she get there? Apparently, Machado was smuggled out. She ordered his guys to pass through 10 checkpoints. Later, she was ferried out on a wooden boat with US help. Now, kudos for her struggle. There is no denying that Maduro is an autocrat. But did she deserve the Nobel Peace Prize for opposing him? A lot of people don't think so. Usually, peace groups in Oslo organize a torch rally to celebrate the prize winner. This time, they refuse to do it.
Well, we know it's been documented that she is not interested in dialogue with the current regime in Venezuela. And she's also been very clear that she is not against foreign intervention in order to change regimes in Venezuela. And the Norwegian Peace Council, we're an idealistic peace organization. And so for us, her opinions we don't support them, and we don't agree with them.
This is not unprecedented. It happened last in 2012. That's when the European Union won the Peace Prize. Before that, in 2009, when Barack Obama won the Peace Prize, and also in 1973, when Henry Kissinger won it. Frankly, the list sums up the problem with this prize. Just look at Machado. She has called for US intervention to overthrow Maduro, an operation that could kill Venezuelan citizens. Today, she was given a chance to clarify. Listen to her response.
I was asked if you were supporting an intervention from the United States, and I said that Venezuela has already been occupied by forces from totalitarian regimes such as Russia, Iran, Cuba, and criminal groups such as Hezbollah, the drug cartels, and the Colombian guerrilla.
Guess who Machado called after winning the prize? First was US President Donald Trump. The other was Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, a leader who's accused of genocide in global courts. Not very peace-loving, is it? The fact is, the Nobel Prize has become a political tool. It's not about fighting for peace. It's about legitimizing Western interests. Consider the case of Myanmar's Aung San Suu Kyi. She was awarded the Peace Prize in 1991. She was propped up as the defender of Myanmar's democracy by the West. But what happened in the end? She did not defend democracy. She defended her army's genocide of the Rohingya. Same with Barack Obama. His prize was intended to give him a boost, to portray a newbie leader as a champion of peace. But Barack Obama ended up unleashing a brutal drone war. He carried out more than 500 strikes around the world. Reports say more than 300 civilians were killed. Then in the year 2012, the European Union won the Nobel Peace Prize. A lot of people found it borderline funny. Back then, the EU was struggling with infighting and debt crises. It was in the news for all the wrong reasons, and that's precisely why the EU got this award, to boost their legitimacy at a point of weakness. Then in 2019, Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed won the prize, again a darling of the West. A year before, in 2018, he'd visited the United States. The US media called him a natural friend. But in 2020, he unleashed a war on his own people. He deployed soldiers into a restive province called Tigray. And of course, how can we forget Henry Kissinger? He led a carpet bombing campaign in Cambodia in the 1970s. Total deaths, tens of thousands. Even today, people die from unexploded US bombs there. That's how brutal it was. But this story is not just about who got the award. It's also about who did not. In 2010, the Nobel panel wanted to award a Chinese dissident, but Norway's foreign minister lobbied against him. He did not want to antagonize China. This is what goes on behind the scenes. There are so many genuine peace campaigners in the world, fighting wars, fighting poverty, fighting injustice. Unfortunately, they do not have Western leaders on speed dial. They also don't have 300 billion barrels of oil at home. If you want to celebrate peace, go beyond the headlines, go beyond Western political interests. Look for people making a difference. Our next story is from Santa's hometown in Finland. It is a city called Rovaniemi. It is known worldwide for reindeer, snow and Christmas magic. But this winter, that picture has changed because the sky above Santa's hometown is not just for sleigh bells anymore. It now carries the sound of NATO aircraft. NATO is the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Finland joined NATO in 2023. That gave the alliance its longest land border with Russia. More than 1,400 kilometers of it. And this town sits just a few hundred kilometers from that border. Reports say Moscow is building up forces on the other side, so NATO is preparing for the worst-case scenario, a conflict with Russia. And that preparation is happening in Santa's hometown. Here's a report.
If you imagine Santa's hometown, you imagine calm. Snow falling softly. Reindeer moving slowly through the trees. Children running towards a man in red. It feels like the last place on Earth where the world's problems could reach. But this winter, something unexpected has arrived in Santa's world. Military aircraft, troop convoys, and the hum of NATO training in the Arctic snow. Welcome to Rovaniemi. This is a small city in Finnish Lapland, right on the Arctic Circle. Famous worldwide as the home of Santa Claus, and now suddenly part of Europe's changing security map. Tourists still arrive for the magic that the place holds. But some reportedly say they have heard jets during reindeer rides. Others have spotted helicopters crossing the white horizon. What they are now seeing is Finland's new reality. The shift began when Finland joined NATO in 2023. Finland now gives NATO its longest land border with Russia, almost 900 miles, or about 1,450 kilometers. A large section runs through Lapland's empty, frozen wilderness. That geography makes Lapland crucial for winter training. The terrain is tough, the cold is severe, and the region lies close to Russia's Kola Peninsula. That peninsula holds the largest concentration of Russia's nuclear weapons. Finnish officials say Russia is strengthening its forces across the border. They warn that once the war in Ukraine ends, more Russian units may move north. The rhetoric matches the build-up. Just last week, President Vladimir Putin said he was ready for war if Europe starts it. So NATO troops are here for one clear reason: to prepare for the possibility of a conflict with Russia if tensions ever escalate. This is not prediction, it is preparation. And this preparation has a center of gravity. Just outside Rovaniemi lies Rovajärvi. It is Western Europe's largest winter training area. Troops arrive through Rovaniemi and then move on to Rovajärvi for Arctic training. And it is only about 90 kilometers from Russia. This season, Rovajärvi has also been busy. One large exercise, Lapland Steel 25, brought close to 1,000 troops from Finland, Sweden, and the United Kingdom. They moved through knee-deep snow, trained with tanks and armored vehicles, and used skis to cross terrain that roads cannot reach. Another major drill soon after brought more than 2,000 Finnish and Polish soldiers. Each movement tested how well NATO forces can work together in some of the harshest conditions in Europe. And Rovaniemi's role is only growing. The city is expected to host Finland's new Forward Land Forces. Its purpose is to strengthen NATO's eastern flank. But the preparations run deeper than military bases. Even Santa Park, the city's underground attraction, has a second role. It doubles as a bomb shelter for residents. It's a reminder that beneath the holiday lights sits a darker reality. So this winter, Rovaniemi holds two worlds at once. Families chasing the Christmas magic and NATO troops preparing for scenarios no one wants to see.
Our next story takes us to the Caribbean, to a scene straight out of a military playbook. The US has seized a large oil tanker right off the coast of Venezuela, and the way it happened has stunned the region. Before we get into the details, listen to what US President Donald Trump has said.
As you probably know, we've just seized a tanker on the coast of Venezuela, large tanker, very large. Largest one ever seized, actually.
So what is this tanker, and why did the US move in? Let's break it down for you. The ship is called the Skipper. It is not a Venezuelan ship. It is a foreign vessel. Reports say it is owned by a company in Nigeria. It was sailing under a flag that was fake, but it was carrying Venezuelan oil. How much? Almost 2 million barrels of heavy crude. And that is a huge load. Now, to give you some context, heavy crude is thick and slow to move. To carry it, you need a super tanker. It is a giant ship built for massive ocean transport, and the Skipper is one such ship. This is the ship that the US went after. The helicopters took off from the USS Gerald Ford. It's the world's largest aircraft carrier, the Gerald Ford, and it has been in the region as part of Washington's military buildup. The helicopters flew towards the tanker, they hovered right above it, and then troops came down on ropes. They landed on the deck, and within minutes they took control of the ship. And why was the ship targeted? US Attorney General Pam Bondi explained the reasons. She said the tanker had been sanctioned for years. It was part of an illicit shipping network, one that moved sanctioned oil from Venezuela and Iran, and that supported foreign terrorist organizations. So in Washington's eyes, this seizure was justified. But that still leaves one big question. What happens to the tanker and its cargo now? Reporters put that question directly to US President Trump, and this is what he said.
We're interested in the seizure of this tanker. What happens to the oil on that ship?
Well, we keep it, I guess.
Where does it go? What port does it go to?
Well, you have to follow the tanker. You know, you're a good newsman. Just follow the tanker.
Do you know where it was going? Was it going
follow
to
it.
China?
Get a helicopter and follow the tanker.
Is it sure it's going to
But we're
Cuba?
I assume we're going to keep the oil.
This answer has raised even more questions because this was not a small cargo. Reports say about half the oil on board was heading to Cuba. The rest belonged to Venezuela. And oil is Venezuela's main source of money. It is their biggest export and an economic lifeline. So losing a shipment this large is a big blow for Caracas. Here's how it's responding to the seizure. Venezuela has called it a blatant theft and an act of international piracy. Those are the words they use. Venezuela says this is part of a long-running US campaign, a campaign to go after Venezuela's oil. It also said it would denounce this incident before international bodies. Cuba has backed Venezuela's condemnation. Its president called the seizure, and I'm quoting, a violation of international law and an escalation of aggression. So the outrage is only building. But what looks like one seizure is actually part of a much larger picture, a picture that involves US warships, surveillance flights, and a steady military buildup in the Caribbean. Like I said, Washington has been expanding its presence in these waters. Since the month of September, the US has conducted several strikes in the region. It has attacked boats and accused them of trafficking drugs. And look at the toll. More than 80 people have been killed so far, 80 people. The campaign is part of a US plan to pressure Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. Washington has accused his government of narco-terrorism. Maduro, of course, has denied it. He says this is not about drugs or security at all. This is a tactic to oust his regime.
We say no to interventionism, no to plans for destabilization and regime change. The U.S. government should focus on governing its own country.
So this is not about one oil tanker or a few so-called drug boats. This is about power, oil, military force in the Caribbean, and how far the US is willing to go to dethrone Maduro in Venezuela. What makes a festival or a food tradition important to the world? UNESCO has an answer. UNESCO is the United Nations educational, scientific and cultural organization. It works to promote peace through education, science and culture. Every year it comes up with a list of intangible cultural heritage. This list does not celebrate monuments, it celebrates practices that people perform and pass on. Things like festivals, crafts, music, food and rituals that shape identity. Countries want their tradition on this list, because inscription brings global visibility and a boost to tourism. This year, the festival of Diwali has made it to the list. It's India's most widely celebrated, one of the most widely celebrated festivals. Italian cooking has also made it. So why were these chosen? And what does this recognition mean for the countries involved? Here's a report.
Every year, UNESCO releases a list that tells a global story. A story of living traditions. It is called the representative list of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity. It covers living heritage, festivals, music, crafts, rituals, and skills that communities teach from one generation to the next. Countries compete to be on this list because inscription brings visibility. It signals that a tradition is part of humanity's shared cultural identity, and it can unlock support to help keep that tradition alive. UNESCO evaluates these nominations once a year. Nations prepare detailed files. Then, a committee reviews them. It examines the evidence and decides what joins the list. Every year, the list grows. So far, more than 800 items from 157 countries have been inscribed on the list. And this year was no different. In 2025, UNESCO added a set of traditions that stretch from festivals to food to music. The headline entry was Deepawali. It is the Festival of Lights and India's most widely celebrated tradition. Deepawali joins several other Indian entries already on the list, including yoga, the Garba of Gujarat, and Kolkata's Durga Puja. Prime Minister Narendra Modi lauded UNESCO for adding the festival to the list. Another major addition this year was Italian cooking. Italy described its cuisine as a mosaic of local traditions. UNESCO accepted the nomination and placed it alongside earlier Italian entries such as the Mediterranean diet. Other new entries came from across the world. Egypt's koshery a daily street dish, made it to the list. So did Ghana's high-life music and dance, and Iceland's swimming pool culture. Switzerland's yodeling tradition also made it to the list, among others. Each entry reflects one of UNESCO's core categories: oral traditions, performing arts, social practices, knowledge of nature, and traditional craftsmanship. These categories help organize the list, but they also reveal something deeper. They show us that heritage lives in many forms, and this recognition can translate into real benefits. It can strengthen community pride, encourage governments to invest in safeguarding the culture, and most importantly, draw international attention that influences tourism. Take Italy, for instance. Industry groups say the UNESCO label could increase tourism by up to 8% within 2 years. China saw similar results. After the Spring Festival was added to the list in 2024, the country reported a sharp rise in inbound tourism during 2025's celebrations. But it is worth noting that there is no direct prize or financial award linked to the list. However, UNESCO operates an intangible cultural heritage fund. Countries can request assistance for documentation, training, and safeguarding. And that is the purpose of the list: to recognize traditions that shape communities, to support the people who keep them alive, and to remind the world that heritage is not only what we build, it is what we practice, remember, and choose to pass on.
If you're chronically online, there's a good chance you've diagnosed yourself with something. Depression, anxiety, ADHD, or high-functioning something. All because you watched a few TikToks and Reels, or did one late-night Google rabbit hole, or woke up feeling like your whole personality was a symptom. But sometimes, you're not going through some mental illness, you're just going through life. A breakup, a bad month at work, the slow, exhausting grind of adulthood. And I'm not the one saying this, it's general practitioners in the UK, doctors. They were part of a survey recently, and this is what they said. Over half of mental health problems are overdiagnosed, more than 50% of them overdiagnosed, and that is not the only concern. Many doctors feel that the real patients are not getting help. Those who actually have mental illnesses, they're being ignored amid this deluge of overdiagnosis. And this is happening across the globe. Here's what the World Health Organization says. The WHO says more than 1 billion people are living with mental health conditions. More than 1 billion people, but the diagnosis numbers are far higher. Why? Because the line between emotion and illness is often blurred. A bad week is depression. Nervousness before a presentation is anxiety. Being introverted is autism. Being distracted is ADHD. Being heartbroken is trauma. And grief, the oldest human reaction, is treated like a malfunction. So how did we get here? Well, there are 3 main reasons. First, diagnostic definitions. Definitions for mental illnesses have been widened. It pulls more and more normal behavior into the medical world. That's the first reason. Reason number 2 is social media. Look at this survey. 1 in 4 young Americans have already self-diagnosed from social media. And Gen Z leads the pack, accounting for 30% of this trend. For many, it's even content. Hashtags like ADHD and bipolar have billions of views. The content feels relatable and comforting, but relatable does not mean clinical, and comfort does not equal diagnosis. Reason 3, life just got harder. Housing, inflation, loneliness, pandemic trauma, all of this is affecting the newer generations. Many are not mentally ill, they're just exhausted and overwhelmed. But instead of fixing the systems that are breaking us, society medicates the symptoms. Across countries, high-income countries especially, ADHD diagnoses are rising 18 to 28% a year. Autism rates surge in ways that experts cannot fully explain. Bipolar disorder is misdiagnosed in up to 40% of the cases. Anxiety and depression diagnoses have doubled since the 1990s rather. Some experts say that this is real. Others say it's just inflation. The truth is probably somewhere in between. But one thing is quite clear. We've lost our sense of what normal feels like. And here's something funny, or maybe just predictable. Every generation thinks that the one after it is softer. Your grandparents thought your parents were weak. Your parents thought you were fragile. And now many believe that Gen Z and Gen Alpha cannot handle anything, not even their own emotions. And perhaps this is the nuance that we miss. Mental health awareness is not weakness, but resilience is not old-fashioned either. Both can coexist. And yes, mental illness is very real. Depression, ADHD, autism, bipolar disorder. These are real, complex, sometimes life-threatening problems. They deserve respect and resources. Which is why claiming them casually is not harmless. It is diluting the meaning. It trivializes the real suffering. So to sum it up, emotional ups and downs are part of being human. You're allowed to feel lonely, stressed, heartbroken, confused, overwhelmed. Sometimes none of this requires a label. Sometimes they just need resilience and the ability to sit with discomfort. It was just a normal day in Pakistan's National Assembly. Speaker Ayaz Sadiq was going on with his routine work when he found this on the chamber floor. 10 5,000 Pakistani rupee notes. That's 50,000 Pakistani rupees. So he waved it in the air and asked the owner to claim it. 12 lawmakers raised their hands. 12 lawmakers for 10 notes. Do the math. They finally found the real owner, but the internet exploded in memes. Take a look at this.
ये किसी के पैसे गिर गए, ये को 10-12 हाथ खड़े हो गए। पैसे इतने नहीं है जितने लोगों के हाथ खड़े, ये तो सारे हाउस के हाथ खड़े हो गए। ये थैंक यू जो भी मुझे दे के गया।
And now it's time for Vantage shots, images that tell the story. A skydiver crash lands in downtown Mexico City and ends up dangling from a traffic light. Spanish divers brave sharks to put a Christmas nativity scene in the Madrid Zoo aquarium. And animals at an English zoo enjoy Christmas-themed treats. Finally, we're taking you back in history. On this day in 1936, Britain's King Edward VIII abdicated the throne for love. He was the first British monarch to do this voluntarily. He did it to marry an American divorcee, Wallis Simpson. Back then, marrying a divorcee was a strict no for the royal family. We're leaving you on that note. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.